Well, speaking of movement, I sure had a good opportunity to do a bunch of that yesterday because, um, yeah, a friend was celebrating a birthday, so went out to hang out with Punch Mom's crew, and
Hmm.
we went to a uh, Nerf outing. So it's like like Nerf gun,
It's not paintball.
tag.
It's less painful, man.
So that was the first part of the day, and that was like, oh, that was fun, shooting some different types of Nerf guns, and like the crazy dudes that work there had their own modified like one. Yeah, so they come like they're like, oh yeah, so this is basically this isn't street legal, but it's got a feed chamber and an automatic thing, and it goes, and you can basically get a feed drum for it, and yeah, yeah, madness, and it's like, oh wow, yeah, these Nerf like dudes are going hard. That's cool. And then the second half of that was let's now switch over to combat archery. Do you know anything about combat archery?
I maybe I'm a fool, but I assumed all archery was combat archery due to the bow and arrow being a weapon.
So, yeah, I suppose, but I mean, there's the main difference, I suppose, is you can do archery where everyone's on one side and the targets are on the other, or you can do archery where you're facing each other and you are
Hmm.
the targets. Um, so when
Wait, so you and Punch Mom shot arrows at each other?
yeah,
Real arrows?
I mean, they're not real in the sense that there's no blade on the tip, there's no arrowhead, but it's got a large rubber thing that hits, oof, that like leaves bruises. And it's, well, so here's oh, is it? Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's how combat archery goes. Everyone is like, "Oh wow, fun Nerf," and like I did a little tuck and roll over a barrier, and
Yeah.
had some fun shooting, and everyone was doing that. And then combat archery starts, and then uh, the sound of the arrow missing you and slamming against the wall behind you sobers you the up, and you go, "Holy!" This is a full extension, full release, bam, massive bruising like punch that is flying at you.
Oh.
And about 2 games in, immediately shot in the balls, just
Yeah.
straight to the junk.
Yeah.
I go down, I'm out.
Hmm.
That's gonna take me out for the rest of that game. Um, you've got visors, but they're the, if you've ever been to paintball, you've got the
Yeah.
regular
Visors.
visor.
They protect your eye from literally exploding, so that's cool.
They're more of a liability because they fog up way too much for you to be able to see anything, as anyone who paintballs knows. And you can get the anti-fog ones, which usually you have to rent more, pay more for at paintball places. This place, they just had the foggy, you can barely see after 5 minutes goggles. So in any case, that shit hits you right in the fucking franken beans, and you're done. That's that. Um, I came back out after, like, I sat the rest of that one out and took a water and walked it off, and it sucks. And then I came back in. Um, that entirely fucking terrifying with how hard and how fast these things are flying at you. Someone else gets hit in the tit, and similarly kind of goes like down. It's like, this is scary and kind of hurts, and it's less than a paintball, but
Hmm.
it's like, I would say it splits the difference between that and like a hard Nerf hit, which is like nothing.
Yeah.
Um,
So,
but
like, I'm just sitting here. I'm like, Wooly, if that was a regular arrow, like a piercing or bladed arrow, you wouldn't have been hit in the nuts because you would have been so scared of being hit in the nuts with the arrow. You would have done a much cooler, bigger move to get out of the way. You just weren't motivated enough.
Yeah, well, the problem also is that it's a bit easier to do a tuck and roll with a smaller Nerf gun than it is with a bow and arrow, which can break, which can snap, and which has a very detailed instructional process on how to not fuck around with it. Because
Yeah.
there's a million things that go wrong. If you dry fire, it
Don't do
fucks
anything
up.
cool while holding this bow.
If you rest it on the ground and not on a surface, or at least on your foot, it can damage the bow. If it flips over, it can damage like there's a million things. If you pull it in the wrong spot, don't release in the wrong spot. If you knock it incorrectly, yada yada.
Hmm.
There's so many things that can break about it that it's just like, yeah, don't fuck around. So in any case, we played, and then some of the games too were like, okay, there was one where it's like, okay, infected, so when you take a hit you switch sides until there's like an extremely unfair amount of people on one team, and then one person just like cowering in a corner getting pelted with
Are these in our like
arrows.
out rules, or is these like, ow, I don't want to do it, ow?
These are the rules that the place used for their combat archery. This is how they roll. They're like, we start with the game. It's the first game's infected. Then there's like, okay, someone gets a shield, and you can be like a healer that can block, and
Hmm.
and so like, that's kind of cool. And there's a bit of a rule to where like if an arrow hits somebody and you catch it, the person who shot it is out. So you can actually like be a bit more like cavalier with your uh, uh, with trying to save people, but it doesn't stop them from taking the hit and going fuck, you know. In any case, and that kind of continued, and then there was a King of the Hill game which involved, as you know, King of the Hills back and forth.
Hmm.
Gotta put a pylon on for your team. Put the flag down and yada yada, and that can just build up and build up and build up, and everyone's exhausted and gassed, picking up arrows on the ground while trying to not get shot, while trying to knock, and everything is just, it's a lot. It's insanely cardio intensive, and it sucks to just be taking those hits as well at the same time. And then an arrow hit one of our friends right in the neck, and she goes down, and that's just the end of the activity,
Like down,
because
down, or like
down,
eh.
down, down, like no, down, hurt, bad, not good, right? Because you have eye protection, face mask protection, but everything else is open and exposed. And as we learned very quickly, my fucking nuts and someone's boob are, it hurts. It's not great. And then yeah, you get hit in the neck, obviously, and that's also a major injury. And so yeah, I don't have any bruises. Punch Mom has a few for sure,
You
and
sure your nuts ain't bruised?
I they appear to be okay. Um, but we had to like wrap up, and like she had to get ice for her neck, and well, not Punch Mom, but
Ah,
the
good
the,
old
the
ice.
friend who got shot. And it was just like, yeah, like if you're going to paintball, right, which I've done before. I haven't done
Yeah.
airsoft, but
Hmm.
um, you know how to dress up. You put a couple layers on,
Yeah, you
and
wear like
then
sweatpants and sweatshirt and blah blah blah.
and then you get some overalls while you're there, which are also pretty thick, and you can take the hit and you feel it, but it like like a really like direct spot one it'll leave a bruise the next day and you'll see it, but at the same time, like in this, we were just in like whatever kind of street clothing, with zero padding whatsoever. So like, yeah, that shit fucking is pretty goddamn dangerous. And you sign your waiver at the beginning to be like, yeah,
Nah, it's not our fault. It's
yeah,
not my
yeah.
problem.
Everyone signs one of those, but like, to be perfectly honest, you kind of should be wearing a little bit more protection here. A cup, for sure. A little something for your neck. Just something for the tender areas that like can get fucked up, because like, yeah, these things are really flying at you. And again, it just, the difference between having the padding and the clothing I did when I went to paintball versus not is enough to, fucking scare the shit out of you with some of this. So, yeah, just a fair warning. It can be fun, but also that, you know. Um, and
Imagine, imagine how cool it would have been if you guys got stuck with arrows It would have been so cool. Then you'd have an arrow scar in your balls. Think of the story.
Like, if there was a way to like have an arrow that like tags into your clothing, like, or into like if you're wearing like something that can like, you know, like it just like stick to you or so and like mark you but not impale, that would be a bit more fun.
You can do that with like a sticker, like or like a suction cup or something.
I don't know, it'd be fun, but as it stands, this is just a full pull. They're not like fucking composite longbows or anything. We're not doing an 80-pound pull like you know, riding on horseback or anything. But you were still doing like a goddamn, you know, a full on a full pull and release is like, that shit's it's the strength of like a really good overhand right to the body, you know what I mean? Like to the head or a hook to the body. Like it feels like a hard punch, probably with like 12-ounce gloves or so.
So like, I guess one of the things that I haven't picked up on, and I just realized, like, the way you're describing it is like really somewhat accurate for, like, I would assume that firing a bow and arrow was actually like fairly difficult to hit a human-sized target. Like, is it?
Yeah. It's hard. It's not easy. You're using the like the sights, which are just like, there's a little like groove in where you know, when you knock the arrow and then you pull it back. But it actually, like, if you don't have a clean shot, you see the arrow trying to kind of waver off and arc down and stuff. It's difficult to hit a moving target. Yeah, I'd say so.
But like, you guys were like what like, say out of every arrow you fired, what was the chance that you were actually going to hit somebody?
Okay, so the thing is from all the way back from one side of the field to the other, like, you could hit somebody, but it was way harder from to hit that small of a target. I would say, like, if, you know, there's a couple of places where you can run up to like within 10 feet, you know, and like at that point,
anybody get hit.
Yeah, you're getting hit, right?
Well,
you go.
Here's the part where it kind of breaks for me. I'm like, if like shooting somebody with bow and arrow is hard, right? Like way harder than paintball. Would you say that?
Yeah.
Like,
definitely.
if you're getting within 10 feet, then why not just skip the step and just give you like a big foam bat?
We had foam axes.
Get out of here! Yeah.
And if you wanted to, you could throw a foam axe at somebody, and if it hits them and they don't catch it, they're out. But if they catch it, then you're out.
Well, when you when you say throw, can my throw be 1 foot away and I don't let go of it?
You no, because you're not actually allowed to get that close to their side. There's a no man's land of about 10 feet, and then like you can cross it to get your stuff.
This is kind of coming together in my head.
So there's your side, there's their side, there's a no man's land in the middle, and you cannot actually cross onto their side. And at a certain point, it's dodgeball rules, right? At a certain point, I was certainly tired enough, and I was too done with picking up arrows to bother. So I just had the shield. I was the healer, and I was like, I'm just going shield, and I'm grabbing axes, and I'm tomahawking these at fuckers, you know. And that was my game for a while, because in paintball you can like glove hit away like bullets if you're fucking sick. And you're
willing to bust your hand.
Yeah, if you're willing to. Well, I mean, that there's a glove for it, right? But with the shield, I'm super down to parry arrows all day, right? Like, let's do it. So there was a game where you both had a cone at the back of the field, and when it was down, nobody would heal anymore, type of thing. And while it was up, people could heal after 5 seconds. So one person's job was to parry the arrows as they were and defend the cone while everyone else was shooting the opponents. And I took that role on. Fuck it, I'm gonna Reinhardt. I don't care, you know. With the shield, I'm super down to play that version of the game where I deflected a couple and I absolutely tomahawk some people. If you shoot too high, it's too easy to catch. You're playing risky, so you got to hit them in the legs, you know? So I was enjoying that part of it. In fact, by the end of the night, like a couple of us were like, man, can we just play shields and axes next time? Because, like, that was a little less brutal and also, like, it didn't involve the constant bending over, picking up, and being out in the open.
Like, I feel like this conversation is like very slowly creating the, like, you know what I would really love to do as an adult is play a game of dodgeball with a bunch of other adults.
Sure, play dodgeball essentially, yeah. And then and then you're also getting into LARPing territory.
Yeah. And the other thing is that I remember, I don't know if this ever happened to you, but do you ever go down to the laser tag on St. Catherine?
Yeah, many times. Yeah.
Okay. So I went down there a couple times, and depending on, like, sometimes they tell you and other times they didn't. Like, but I remember once I went when I was like 10 and they were like looking us dead in the eyes of our soul and being like, do not hit people with your gun. Do not like in that way that that can only mean that the group before you was clearly hitting people with their guns.
And that made no difference whatsoever.
No, you still hit people with your gun.
My crazy fucking cousin. If he saw me, he was just swinging.
If they got too close to you, what are you gonna do? Back off? No, hit him.
Multiple times, I shot him, and he was eliminated, and he was pissed off because he was in the recharging phase, and he just fucking swung his gun at me. So yeah,
that's man.
Dude fucking just gave no shits. That's the way it worked. And you know, there'd be like no hitting and no crawling, you know, but like, yeah. Like,
and don't hold your gun like this in front of your chest so that, and then hold your hand on the gun so that you cover all the sensors.
It's interesting because if you cover your chest and you have your gun pointed out there that way, like that's why they made the gun itself a target.
Yeah, but then you can bring tape.
Oh,
tape on your gun.
Come on. Oh my God. If you bring fucking tape to Laser Quest,
nah, man, I'm not out. No,
that
shut
is
up.
the saddest shit in the world.
So it's funny because, like, do you remember being? Did you ever play like water? You know, like Super Soaker shit,
yeah.
Right? Like, and Nerf shit, and it's like whenever you played with kids that weren't part of your immediate family, like siblings or closer, right? You would always run into the fucking situation. Like, let's say Eric. You blasted Eric's eyes out of his face with the Super Soaker. He's like, no, it didn't fucking count. Didn't count. And like, it would eventually escalate and escalate and escalate until we can't play anymore because now kids are like trying to fight. And it's like, why you gotta be like that, Eric?
The thing I feel though, like, Super Soakers were way more fun, but they also didn't have a rule, because it was just, your goal is to just soak the other person, and then you're all like, we're wet. So you can just kind of take it and mess around and try to dodge the shots. But
the Nerf gun shit of watching something bounce right off somebody and them go, that didn't hit me.
Yeah, so the thing that, you need an honor system in play, and with Nerf, like, to me, Nerf is it's not as fun as Super Soakers, but at least there's a point where, like, you're like, oh, okay, you got tagged, right? But if they're assholes and they're like, no, then they just fucking don't play along, and you're like, well, why are we even playing this game?
Are we playing it so that you can win? And because your dad won't let you use the computer because you spent your credit card on Valorant aimbots?
I'm trying to remember what it was, but there was one Christmas where because we liked the laser tag, we played Laser Quest, and then there was another place out in Laval called Qzar, and it was shittier because their game type was like, it was so stupid. It was like you had limited shots, and you had to run back to your base to recharge your gun on a wall to then get your shots back. And it was terrible. It was so stupid. Like, it was, they thought it would be more fun to have this ammo system, but it fucking just slowed everything down. And anyway, whatever. So that version of it was lame. But we kind of were like, yo, like there's now these home laser tag things you can buy, right? And I forget the names of them, but there was like a couple of them that were just like, yeah, you buy the chest and you buy a shooter, and then you can get like a tag set and you can play. And I was like, oh fuck, let's do that. And so we kind of like wanted to get that for Christmas, and we got it one year. But it wasn't like there was like the big brand name one. And I forget the name of that one, but then that one was like super expensive, so we got like the fucking second tier.
Yeah.
And the second tier one would constantly ping so that you could never really hide or sneak up on anybody. Every 5 seconds it went ding, and it was just like, why would you ruin this? You know? The fucking off-brand laser. And then it became so unfun to just constantly hear somebody sneaking up on you in the house or in the backyard or whatever, that we're like, fuck this. We're just going to do the target practice thing where you put the targets up and shoot it. And then we're like, return it. This is garbage. And we exchanged it for something. I forget what. Like something video game related, probably. Yeah.
And you're like, yeah. Like at that point, like, let's just go back to water balloons.
It basically, yes. Absolutely. We had tons of water balloon fights at church that were fun. But anyway, all of this is just to say that like the archery level of this is like, I've never done it, so it was a curiosity. I was like, yeah, let's try this out. And like, there's a cool feeling to like pulling back and releasing and actually hitting a bullseye. Like that's a very super cool thing. But I definitely am just like, I don't have the ability to do this under pressure, under fire, high stress environment and actually land and hit anything. And neither did anyone else there for that matter, you know? So I would say like for every 20 shots that were loosed, one would hit somebody, you know what I mean? Like it's pretty low accuracy. Eventually I kind of was just like, fuck this, I'm gonna push up and try to fight within the 20 feet to 10 feet range of people, because that's the only way these games are gonna end.
Closer, just closer. And eventually it's just like, what if I shot you from 2 inches away?
Yes, right? At which point you can jump, and if one hits you, I had one hit me in the leg, and it was kind of like, oh, can I catch it? You know, if it's a decent enough bounce.
If you catch it before it hits the ground, does that count?
If you catch it before it hits the ground, you are not out. Dodgeball rules.
That rules.
You can catch it in midair, or it can hit you, and then you can catch it.
I guess that wouldn't work with the regular arrow, because like then if a regular arrow, you'd catch it
or die.
No. I mean, like if it hits you, you don't have to do anything because you caught it.
Oh, it's in. Yes, exactly. And then if it hits someone else, and then you try to catch it and you fail and it hits you and then hits the ground, you're both out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway, it's a type of activity that's like, it's fun, but caveat, stipulations. Wear some fucking protection. Bring a cup. Bring a neck protector. Bring some knee and elbow pads, probably.
It's funny that you mention and you tell this story with this kind of caveat, like after I start the podcast with like, I'm old. I'm almost 40. Because like, I remember when I went to paintball, the last time I went to paintball, I was like 26, I want to say. I think I went with you. And like some of us got fucked up, and we dealt with people that like would just keep shooting you over and over because of that big public thing. Right?
Was it outdoors?
Yeah, it was outdoors. It was like we had to drive for a couple hours to get there.
Yeah. That's where I did the solid snake roll into a trench.
Right, and like you'd see those motherfuckers with the custom like shit that would just shoot you like 10 times. You're like, you got me, and then they would just shoot you again, and like. Yeah, you'd be covered in bruises. And I remember, like, back then, like, I'm in my 20s, like, man, who gives a shit? That was awesome. Ow, my hurts. Whatever. Who gives a fuck? And now you're like, oh, man, you got to be careful, man. You could get a nasty bruise. Ooh. And I'm like, I would probably be saying the same thing if I had also gone.
Dude, I mean, the games ended because of injuries. That's, like, we didn't make it to the bell because
the time is over.
Hurt.
It's done now.
Yeah. No, I remember that paintball of youth. What was it? It was the game where I was like carrying the football or whatever. I was like the flag, the VIP. Oh, protect the president with the briefcase, I think.
Yeah.
That's what it was. And And I remember like I was running through the forest area, and like at one point it just like there was like three or so people all like grouped up just going ah, and I'm like running past, and I hit a branch and tripped and started to stumble, and then there was like a trench opening right in front, so while stumbling I just head over flipped and full on solid snake tumble into the trench and got to safety. And like they're like, dude, that was fucking insane. Was that intentional? And I'm
And
like,
you're like, yeah, absolutely.
mostly.
It was absolutely, completely intentional.
That was mostly intentional. You know, it was one of those mistakes into miracles type situation.
Yeah.
You know, but it could have. I didn't know how far the trench was. If it went a little bit less shallow than I thought, that would have been my head going down. At which point, end of Woolie. So you know, calculated.
You're
risks.
young in this story. You would have survived.
A neck break, absolutely.
Yeah, totally. People survive that all the time.
Yeah. So you know, combat archery. You know, you go in knowing that that's what you're gonna need. Also, I want to do it again, but I want to just kind of aim at a bullseye and just see how my aiming is. Really.
You just want to go to a driving range for archery.
Yes, exactly. Because I did that for axe throwing, and it was a ton of fun.
Yeah.
With the exception of the times when the axe bounces off the wood and comes flying right back at you.
You get to have that feeling in your chest of like, is this the stupid thing that's going to kill me?
That's all it was, really? I mean, after all this that time and effort, you know?
I didn't fall off a mountain or get run over by a bus. It's just like I threw an axe at my own self and oh, great. Well, yeah, okay, sure.
Good job getting in shape, idiot. Now get fucking impaled. Like, nice.
Well, now
nice
you're going to be in
jobs.
a slightly different shape.
Yeah. So no, an archery range would be fun, but I don't think I'm gonna be doing combat archery again.
This is the start. This week is the start of us saying, "Oh, we went out and did something. Ooh, cool. Oh, my bones don't agree with it. I don't know. Oh, I don't know. Oh, it's tough.
What it is." And so after that, it was like, all right, the injured girl unfortunately had to go home and nurse that ice, you know, and it was still someone's birthday, so they're like, all right, well, the second half of this was let's go play the board games at the board game bar.
Yeah.
So, you know, that was cool.